Welcome to the Stephen Mansfield Podcast.
Well, welcome to the Stephen Mansfield Podcast. In this podcast, I want to talk about a principle of leadership by way of talking about a policy issue that's filling the headlines these days. So let's dive in. If you've been watching the news, you know that Donald Trump has threatened to take some of the immigrants pouring over our southern border and dump them on the sanctuary cities that are spread throughout the United States. He's frustrated, he's angry, he can't solve the southern border, he can't seem to get consensus on it. And so of late, he has threatened, and he's actually investigating the possibility of taking some of these immigrants who are pouring over our southern border illegally and dumping them on sanctuary cities like Chicago and many of the cities in California which have declared themselves sanctuary cities. Now, the problem with this is that anytime a leader makes a decision, they need to know what their emotional state is. We don't want them to become stoic. We don't want them not to have emotions, but they at least need to know what's working on them. So remember this, anytime you're making a decision as a leader, think through what's working on you. Think through what's playing on you. You're angry, you're hurt, you're embarrassed, whatever it is. You've got to know what those emotions are because you have to be able to clear the weeds, clear the trees, clear the bushes, clear the undergrowth, whatever analogy you want to use, of the emotions that are blocking your view to a good decision. Now, Donald Trump is angry, and he has a right to be angry. In fact, he's the kind of man who basically arises to his best when he is angry and when he is in a battle. Some people are like that. I've known a lot of generals in my life who led us beautifully in battle and combat, but when peacetime came or when they retired, they were like those whales that curl their tail and swim in circles. They didn't really know what to do with peacetime. They didn't really know what to do in retirement because they are people who the best in them arises when they are in conflict and in battle and everything's engaged and they're supercharged. Donald Trump is there very much that way. In fact, I imagine that when he's in the White House and everything's fairly peaceful, he just picks a fight. He just chooses to do something hard-hitting, goes out and picks a fight, says something radical. He likes to be in the fray. He likes to be in the conflict. He likes the bullets whizzing by. He likes for somebody to be angry at him. And he likes for himself to be stirred up and to be emotional and to be having something to combat with. Well, there is a crisis going on our southern border. There's no question about it. This has been neglected for a long time by both parties. The Republicans have not done what they should have done. The Democrats actually want, in some cases, their policies indicate they actually want a great increase of the kind of immigrants we have coming over the southern border because then they want to give them voting rights, and this will strengthen them in some of their districts. I'm not accusing them of betraying the country, but I'm just saying Republicans have been weak. Democrats have been borderline duplicitous on this issue. They could have done more and know that there's more to be done, but they haven't done what they should have done because it may, in fact, long-term benefit them at the polls. So the whole of our congressional leadership is compromised. But there is a crisis going on. Lindsey Graham said not too long ago that we've had enough people pour into the country just since the beginning of the year to equal an entire congressional district. Why does he think that way? Well, he's trying to speak and give us some indication of the numbers, but he's also trying to say that's what's really going on here. People are trying to bolster congressional districts. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. And I think it's true that if you don't have borders, you don't have a nation. If you can't control who comes into your country, and I think we ought to be allowing people into our country. I think we ought to have a good immigration system. I think we ought to be welcoming Ellis Island-like people who will enhance our country. Thank God for the immigrants that we've had. Thank God for the inflow that we've had. But you can't have unchecked, unregulated, unmonitored, massive inflow into your country, or you're basically being invaded. And that's not an anti-Hispanic statement at all. I'm thrilled for the Hispanic immigrants we have in this country. It's the truth at every level and for every kind of immigrant who might come into the country. So what Donald Trump did was he threatened then to dump these immigrants into sanctuary cities. Well, in his anger, of course, he violated the very principle that he's trying to uphold, which is these people shouldn't be here illegally in the first place. They shouldn't be brought in the first place. We should have an immigration policy that says if you're just going to try to bull your way across the borders, that's not going to happen. We're going to stop you. And quite frankly, I think one of the sanest things the president has said is if Congress doesn't act, I'm going to close the southern border to all but commerce. That's what he should have said, by the way, which is why he freaked out the business community. You can't just close the border, but you can close it to all but commerce. And so in his anger, he threatened something that is a violation of his very principles, because once you dump these people into sanctuary cities, there's no keeping them there. These cities aren't armed camps. You can't keep them there, and so they will spill out through the rest of the country. The fact is, we shouldn't be capturing these people to begin with. We shouldn't be putting children in cages. We shouldn't be imprisoning these people to begin with. We should simply be turning them away. And that way they become the problem of the countries that either sent them or the countries that are letting them approach our borders. So it sounds like I'm a hardliner about immigration. I'm actually not. I think some of the things that Donald Trump did in banning immigration from certain countries at the beginning of his administration were crazy. I worked for hours to try to get people into the country, open the doors to Kurds. We had banned some of our best friends. It was nuts. I had friends calling me saying, can you help me get my wife in the country? And these were broadcasters in Washington, D.C., for heaven's sakes. So it was a mess. It was badly done. It was a bit bigoted towards Muslims. It was just poorly done. And I opposed it. I opposed it publicly. I opposed it by working to get people in the country. It was a nutsy policy. So I am not just an extreme hardliner on immigration. But I do believe very strongly that when a politician, when a leader responds in mere anger, they end up betraying their own purposes. So what we should be doing is locking the borders and coming up with a sane policy. What Donald Trump is threatening to do, and he's actually this week in Washington, D.C. investigating legally how to accomplish this, he's going to try to transport these people coming across the borders illegally, to these sanctuary cities, which accomplishes the thing they came into the country illegally to accomplish. And what we should be doing is not allowing them in the country in the first place, other than through a sane and monitored immigration process. The other issue, too, is that these sanctuary cities, according to our own judiciary, are not legal. Now, states can choose to do what they want. Cities can choose to do what they want. But you can't just violate federal policy at a city level. And that's what's going on with these sanctuary cities. You can't welcome people the federal government has designated to be criminal or in the country illegally or in some way violating our security system. So what am I trying to say? When we make decisions out of anger, we make foolish decisions. And while I understand a person whose juices start flowing when they get angry and have a battle to fight, that doesn't often work in public policy. Donald Trump needs to be careful. He does have a right issue. He is talking about the southern border. We do have a crisis. And believe me, people are pouring across that border in massive numbers. I can't say whether terrorists are coming across that border or not, but I can certainly say this situation is untenable. He's right to bring it up, and we are right to focus on it. And we are right also to say that Congress has absolutely betrayed the country by not showing teeth on this issue long ago. Everybody says it has to happen. You can go on YouTube and watch videos of every major politician for the last 2 decades saying that this needs to be taken care of, and nobody's actually stepped up. But when you respond in anger, when you respond just trying to harm the other side rather than engage in wise foreign policy, you actually betray the very principles that you're engaged in. If Donald Trump starts dumping illegal immigrants in sanctuary cities, he will be essentially aiding the very cause that he campaigned against to become president. And we need to watch this. We need to ask our elected leaders to hold him in check. And we also need to ask our elected leaders to get busy on a sane immigration policy for the United States.
Stephen Mansfield is a New York Times best-selling author, a popular speaker, and a frequent faith and culture commentator on Fox and CNN. His groundbreaking books on faith and society include The Faith of George W. Bush, The Search for God in Guinness, Mansfield's Book of Manly Men, and Lincoln's Battle with God. Learn more at stephenmansfield.tv.